Good morning, everyone. Welcome to INSPINAR. INSPINAR is a 30-minute conversation designed to empower us all with the roadmap for a more peaceful and productive life. I'm your host, Dr. Nidhi Gupta. The question for today's episode is how to become the leader that everyone loves reporting to. How to become the leader that everyone loves reporting to. And today it's my honor to welcome our guest, Anna Smith from Houston, Texas. Anna is an organizational psychologist who operates in the crossing of three very important fields. She operates in the crossing of business, psychology, and technology. Anna is a highly sought executive coach and facilitator. She is known for her passion for what she does and for her energetic and interactive style. Anna is the Chief Learning Officer of Brightflare Performance Solutions. Throughout her global career, Anna has been extremely curious about the impact and relationship between humans and technology, a topic that I am equally fascinated about. Anna has worked with organizations such as Microsoft, GE, and American Express, helping teams and individuals elevate their performance and productivity while optimizing their well-being. Anna, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Nidhi. Very happy to be here today.
Thank you, Anna. I am very curious to hear your story. Were there any events or people or incidences that shaped your career, that shaped to make you who you are today, Anna? Let's begin with your story.
You know, Nidhi, yes, definitely. As I reflected back on my career, certainly for our conversation today, one of the most important areas that I believe was a very important milestone in my career was when I was working in human resources. I was basically responsible for all of the beautiful areas in human resources, development, onboarding, talent acquisition, you name it, everything that had to do with all of the growth part of a human being in an organization. And all of a sudden, when I went to have a conversation with a newly promoted director, a sales director, she was phenomenal. Obviously, she had been promoted into that role. As I was looking to understand what she needed in that particular profile of that person that was going to, cover that role that she had recently left, in that conversation, she offers me the job. So from being in human resources to sales, you probably can imagine it was a huge shift for me. I immediately thought, is she joking? What is she trying to do with this? And basically, the interesting thing about this opportunity was I would have never applied for that position ever in my life. The interesting thing for me, Nidhi, was that I said yes to the position, and I spent the next 7 years of my career in sales, and I was extremely successful. The reason behind that was because of all the expertise and passion that I had around people, in addition to the fact that I knew people. But I was very successful, I think, as well, because, I had a beautiful push, a beautiful opportunity there, right from, my new manager there, which was she saw something in me that I didn't even know I had. That was an extremely powerful moment for me in my career. It took me a while to reflect and understand what had happened and then put it into action with my teams. But I think that turned around everything that I did after that. And then I went back into HR and organizational development, but I had that addition of understanding what other people on the other side of the desk were thinking and believing, that customer focus, if you may. So that was an exciting moment, very exciting moment.
So this person who offered you this job saw something in you that you said you probably did not see in yourself.
Yes.
That probably is one of the features of leadership, for leaders to know their talent. So in the current generation, Anna, what are the challenges for leaders, or how can a leader know who their talent is?
Yes, this is such an important aspect. I firmly believe that everybody has, and being an organizational psychologist and a scientist, always looking to, trying to understand this particular area. I believe that everybody has potential. That is kind of the basis of where I start everything. The interesting thing is, are you in the right setup for that potential to be uncovered and polished? Are you given the opportunities? Are you allowed to, is there psychological safety in the environment you're in so that you can, push yourself and try, etc. So there's that as a fundamental basis. If I take it to a leadership perspective, I think the most important thing that not only research, but certainly my experience has taught me is that the leaders that are careful about their self-development are usually very good at developing others. That is probably one of the biggest nuggets that I can share with everyone. If you're good, if you are if you're looking to have self-awareness and self-development, that is going to help and multiply on how you develop your talent.
So well said. I'm going to take that one home. Leaders who are good at self-development are good at developing others. How profound is that? Now, all leaders are not good at self-development from the minute they are born. There are some people who are born leaders, but most of us have to develop, have to nurture those leadership skills. So what do you tell young entrepreneurs out there who want to become leaders? What does it take to sharpen their skills to be a leadership?
Yes, I think, Nidhi, there's a particular combination of things that you need to focus on, and I'll share them in a moment. But there's two things that I would probably recommend right away for anybody that is starting in leadership, is starting their careers, or maybe they've already started and they are in this sea of uncertainty that we're living in right now. There's a couple of areas. One, get your own personal board of directors, people that you trust, maybe an ex-manager, maybe someone that you've seen in action that you really respect. Reach out to them, talk to them, and see if they want to be part of your board of directors, so that really know you. So, and that can be, we can talk about that for certainly the whole 30 minutes, but have 3 or 4, 5 people that you're going to build throughout your career. And these are going to be the folks that are going to help you and guide you and provide you with that perspective, that reflection, help you reflect and help you in the important decision making that you're going to be needing to do throughout. So from that very practical yet very critical aspect, I would go to the second level, which is purpose. So make sure and find your purpose. Is it really around developing talent? Are you really interested? When you become a leader and today you're promoted and then as of tomorrow or next Monday, you're a leader of people, people are not going to follow you automatically by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a switch. It takes work, it takes time, etc. And I'll talk a little bit in a moment about that. But the important thing is, do you want to be a leader of people, a developer of talent? It's very important to connect that with the purpose that you have in your career that is going to give you a lot in the long run. It is something, it's an exercise that you need to do as early as possible in your career. So that is probably the combination of things that I would recommend. On the other side, if there was a formula, if you may, that I would provide, and this is again part of based on experience, based on research, is on 3 levels: on skill set, on mindset, and on heart set. So the skill set that you need, the skill sets that you need, how do you create a vision? How do you become a good communicator? How do you make people feel that they belong? All of these very important ingredients. Mindset. Do you have a growth mindset, a consistent quest for learning? Failure is not failure. Failure is an opportunity to grow and learn and develop. Empathy, etc. So, and then heartfelt, of course, are you willing to look for that potential in people, for what's best in people? All of these can be found, and I know it's highly complex, with the help of a coach and a mentor or a set of mentors.
So true. So you mentioned about the importance of a leader to keep reinventing themselves, to keep their team motivated. But what does it take for the leader themselves to stay motivated and to stay relevant in their industry? Because, these days it's very easy for people to quit after one failure and move on to something else, that, oh, this didn't work, so I'm just going to quit this altogether and move on to something else. How do you stay put and keep going and keep going? You put in the work, the results will eventually come. It takes time. How do you coach your leaders to have that mindset?
I think it's very important, if we go to the beginning of our conversation, to really be self-aware of yourself and really understand what your purpose is, what gives you meaning, what your values are. You'd be surprised, Nidhi, how many times I have had conversations with leaders where I ask them, what is your purpose? And they give me the company's mission or something of that nature. Because they have never had the need or the opportunity or what have you to reflect on things that are really important to them. What gives them that fuel every morning? So you have to have that. And the other piece is I always go back to having mentors throughout your career, having people that help you think things in a different way, think things through in a different way from different perspective. Of course, you go with mentors for the expertise, the perspective, and you go with coaches to help you build your self-awareness in whatever formulation it might be, right? So it's very, very important that you are well-balanced. I talked about, the heart set, and that has to do with your well-being. You have to be true to yourself. And I know that this is not sometimes as clear-cut as, okay, well, I'm gonna just, as of tomorrow, I'm gonna become a farmer. It doesn't happen like that. Until I'm a leader, it has to do with you set up a plan, if that's what you really want to do and what you want to become, and you want to really be close to nature, etc. That's what you do. You build a plan like with anything else. But it's very, very important that you have the ingredient of well-being as well. So heartfelt, heart set, mindset, and skill set.
When you talk about well-being, you touched a nerve there, Anna, because well-being is a huge part of what I do, not just as a pediatric endocrinologist, but as a digital wellness coach as well. So when you work with organizations like Microsoft or GE or American Express, which are very heavy on technology, how do you include the concept of well-being for their teams? How do you include the concept of digital wellness in those organizations?
I think the most important thing, I'll tell you some of the things that have not worked, that I've seen not work. It's probably another way to learn as well, from things that others have tried and not worked necessarily. So for example, thinking that incorporating yoga lessons and meditation rooms and things of this nature are going to solve the employee well-being problem. I've been in organizations where I literally was going to facilitate a session, and on my way there, I saw a meditation room right across the meeting room, and I was like, okay, so this is interesting. Do you meditate before the meeting, after the meeting? No, I'm just kidding. No, but I thought, okay, it triggered a really interesting conversation with these folks after the facilitation session, and it's just bits and pieces of things that they hope people will leverage and use. So coming full circle to your question, it has to be a strategy that is implemented across the board and has representation of all the different stakeholders, employees, managers, leaders, etc., and of course the experts that can drive that conversation. But it is as important as probably the compensation strategy for the company. It's as important as the employee engagement strategy for the company, and how all of this is intertwined, well-being, I mean, into all of those strategies. This is not a siloed approach. I think that when organizations identify this as a huge opportunity, because there's a lot of great research now, obviously, with everything that we've went through with the pandemic, especially, it's fresh from the press that can tell us and can help a lot. And of course, there's a lot of awesome experts like yourself.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. So how do you tackle one question that I often get from parents or from organizations or teams or professionals? They're like, well, we can't really do without digital technology. We work on digital technology all day. I can't live without my devices. I have my emails on my devices. How do I keep track of where my children are? Are they safe? Are they not safe? How do you answer these questions that make me feel that we have become excessively dependent on our technology? And at what point does that dependency start affecting our well-being?
Yes, and I think it all comes down to, there's different ways, but definitely one that I particularly has worked in my case is prioritizing. So if you prioritize and recognize whatever behavior, if you recognize that, if you value that, then that's what's going to continue to happen, right? And, there's an old saying, what gets measured gets done. So it is very, very important to make sure that if you want to change the behavior, whether it's with your teams or with your, with your children, etc., you have to identify that there's a trigger, right? There's a trigger situation, a trigger moment that, of course, generates all of this. And of course, what are some of the things that you're doing to promote those triggers to occur, or not? So that is probably one of the most important things. The other piece that I particularly like, especially when kids and especially adults, have an opportunity to do, is learn a little bit more about what the implications are and what the implications are for the future. And let's have a coaching conversation, meaning let's ask questions, let's not tell them, and let's see what conclusions they come with. You'll be surprised and amazed of what you can even corral teenagers with that one, with a coach approach. So that is probably another little tip that I would give there.
So you, instead of telling them what to do, you ask them what should be done.
Exactly. So they don't have another route to escape other than answer, right? And then you continue to ask.
What are some of the things that you've heard from teams or from children or from professionals about digital well-being? What can they do? Or what are some of the things that you tell them to have more well-being in the digital technology world?
You know, one of the things that I've seen really beautifully done is a leader and, you know, his teams, he had 3 different teams, and provided an opportunity to generate a type of contest. He didn't call it a contest, but, you know, there were perks at the end and prizes or recognitions or things of that nature for the team that could build and behave the best, who could have the best digital behavior for a whole month. You figure it out, you decide what it is, map it out, and then tell us and then share, and we're gonna validate that. And the most important part was really, there were 2 things. One was the journey. Very many times it's the journey, not the destination, that is super valuable, right? It's that learning piece. And then secondly, even if there was, you know, number 1, number 2, and number 3 in terms of depth and, you know, quality or what have you, everybody did bring something forward that everybody else couldn't reach themselves with. So sometimes it's a matter of providing the right route or the right roadmap for people to really expand and grow. I think that with digital, because it is almost like a we're in the middle of the water, you can go anyway, right? And we need a little bit more of a roadmap. You decide how and where to turn and everything, but there's a little bit more of a guidance to get you there, and a learning in the process.
Have the teams often acknowledged, or leaders, do they acknowledge or think about the fact that their team's performances, efficiency, and productivity might actually be hampered by the excessive use of digital technology?
I think that in many cases, I would say they are aware. Sadly, in my experience, in some cases, not everybody cares at the same level. That's part of what being an awesome leader that everybody wants to follow is part of, that you care. Not everybody's there yet. But I think it is a matter of, okay, what is really, let's take a group of, okay, Anna, you talked about this. We're going to give you a group of 10 leaders with this particular profile that they say they don't understand, or they're kind of aware, but they're not very clear or whatever. So what are you going to do with that? So one of the things that I would probably do is, what is really relevant for them? What do they value? What are their needs? And just get to understand a little bit more of them, so that the program is built around that set of values, that set of, if it is their family, for example, that it's important to them, then that's the vehicle. That's the end goal, if you may, right? So this is probably one of the things why I have found that it is a lot more complex to incorporate these solutions, you know, across the board in an organization, because we all have different values and different sets of priorities at a time. So there's a little bit of, I'm going to call it pre-work, human pre-work, that needs to be done in order for that strategy to really land and permeate and certainly stay, which is the other big piece.
I think we are just getting started when it comes to tackling the impact of digital activities and digital technology on organizations, their productivity, their efficiency, and their focus. There is so much work to be done. And people like you, people like Colin, people like me, we are just now getting started. It's an uphill battle, but I think we are going to plow through.
Absolutely. And it's definitely a worthwhile battle that, you know, we're willing to take. The benefits are definitely immense and long lasting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to pause here for a minute and see if there are any questions from people who have joined us. Colin, do you have any questions for Anna today?
Not today, because I work with Anna.
Excellent. And I'm so looking forward to Colin, your and Anna's combined TEDx talk in March. Please share that with us, and I'll share that with our listeners. I'm sure there is so much learning to be had there. So, Anna, before we close the episode, any parting message for the audience?
I think that if I were to start, of course, right, with everything that I know, if I were to start my career, of course, I would do things a little bit different for sure. One of the things that I would probably do is very early start with really understanding what is my purpose, what gives me meaning, what are the things, what are the values that I have, really map all of that, get my board of directors, really understand, put a mirror to myself and see, what my strengths are and what my areas of opportunity are, structure a plan. If you don't have, or I didn't have that level of expertise or comfort in this, I would hire a coach that could help me get to where I need to go. It is like anything else, right? It's like if you have a toothache, you're not going to work on your tooth yourself. You go with an expert, the dentist, and the dentist will help you. So this is something similar. Self-awareness is not something simple. They don't teach this in school, even though it could be a beautiful piece of learning over there. But I would probably recommend getting a coach and, structuring a plan and following, sticking to your plan and pivot if you need to.
Find your purpose, learn the art of self-discipline, and find a coach. So well said. Finding a coach, I couldn't agree more with you, Anna. I think my life changed for good in the last 1.5 years since I found an executive leadership coach for myself. My career took a completely different direction on a scale that I had never imagined. The reason I am doing INSPINAR today and having people like you this week and Colin next week as my guests, I think I can give major credit to my executive coach. So thank you. Thank you for joining us, Anna. It was an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you for a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for the invite.
Thank you, Anna. I am going to close today's episode of INSPINAR with our closing message. Let's reconnect with the real life. Let's reconnect with what truly matters. Let's reconnect with health, joy, and efficiency. Let's ungrip devices and grip life. Thank you for joining us on INSPINAR. I will see you next week with another fantastic speaker. Thank you.
Thank you.